Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new series on the U.S. presidents. I'm Cooper Naylor, and I'm so glad that you could join us here today. And so, what we're going to be doing, just as you saw at the beginning of this video, it's going to be an in depth look at the United States president, starting from George Washington and making our way all the way to our current president, Donald Trump. Now, this is a series that I plan to continue as long as I can do it, and update it every 4 years for each and every president. So, folks, sit back and enjoy as we give you George Washington. Washington was born on February 22nd, 1732. He was the eldest of 6 children for Mary Ball Washington and the fourth of 9 for his father, Augustine, as he was married once before. As Washington grew up, the family moved across Virginia before settling in on Ferry Farm, which was on the banks of the Rappahannock River near Fredericksburg, Virginia. When Washington was 17, he received his first commission to survey Culpeper County. He learned the skills necessary from Colonel William Fairfax, who was a neighbor of Washington's and also one of the leading figures in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Washington would complete nearly 200 surveys ranging more than 60,000 acres in just a few years. After the passing of his older brother Lawrence, Washington had lost interest in surveying. This led to a decision that would change the course of America forever. Washington decided to pursue a career in the military. In October 1753, Washington offered his services to the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Robert Dinwiddie. To fast forward, Washington would make his way up to the ranks of the Virginia military. He would become promoted to Lieutenant Colonel after his daring and courageous journey to spy on the French, who he believed to be planning an attack on the British Army. He eventually became the commander of the Virginia colonial forces before his commission returned at the end of 1758. Years later, he would return to the military to fight in the Revolutionary War. Why did he do so? Well, there are many factors, but what upset him and many of the colonists was the fact that the British seemed to take advantage of the products and taxing the colonists in high levels to pay down the debt that the British accrued during the 7 Years' War. So, on June 14, 1775, George Washington was named the Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. This is also after months of the colonists and the British having already began fighting. So, they did need a Commander-in-Chief, and George Washington was the man for the job. So Washington would go on to lead the colonists to victory over the British by winning important battles, such as the Battle of Yorktown. There, Washington sent General Nathanael Greene to conduct a guerrilla-style attack against General Charles Cornwallis in the South. Cornwallis and the British would win small skirmishes, but it was Greene and the colonists who extracted a heavy cost and forced the British into retreat from North Carolina into Virginia. It was there that Washington would meet the colonial force, and they would bombard the British and force them to wave the white flag in defeat on October 17th, 1781. And not to forget the fact that the French was helping the Americans regain their freedom against the British. 2 years later, Congress would sign the Treaty of Paris, which officially ended the war, and America had gained its freedom from England. After America gained its independence from England, it was a hard time for America. On May 18, 1786, Washington addressed those in Congress by saying, "Something must be done, or the fabric must fall, for it is certainly tottering." It took some time, but by 1789, electors were chosen and unanimously voted for Washington to become the first president of the United States of America. He would accept the nomination. as John Adams was selected as his vice president. He would leave Virginia on April 16th, 1789, to make the trip to New York City to be inaugurated on April 30th. The Washington administration was one of caution, methodical precision, and the sober judgment that was always his character. He was not affiliated with any political party, as he felt it would drive a wedge between the unity of the newly formed country. He expressed this unity beginning by touring the northern states, then making his way to the southern states. Washington had completely shaped what would be the executive branch and what it looks like today. To begin, he chose 4 men to be part of his cabinet. He would select Thomas Jefferson as Secretary of State, Alexander Hamilton as Secretary of the Treasury, Henry Knox as the Secretary of War, and Edmund Randolph as Attorney General. For Washington, he had successfully chosen 2 Federalists and 2 Democratic Republicans in the effort of unity. As his administration continued, he would begin to learn of the divisions between the parties, such as his support for a Bank of the United States. Hamilton supported the establishment of the bank, while Jefferson was strongly opposed. Washington would become distressed with the infighting and would not accept the resignation of either of them. When war broke out between France and England, disregarding the Treaty of Alliance with France, he kept the United States out of war, insisting on the national identity of strength and dignity. Washington wrote that he was trying to keep the country free from political connections with every other country, to see them independent of all, and under the influence of none. In a word, I want an American character that the powers of Europe may be convinced that we act for ourselves and not for others. This was a position also supported by Alexander Hamilton. Because of this position, Thomas Jefferson once again sent in his resignation to the president at the end of 1793. This time, the president would let him go, praising Jefferson's integrity and talents. Washington would go on to sign the whiskey tax into law, which was Washington's way of trying to pay down the debt. This caused many Americans to protest the tax because of its effect on farmers. With this law being passed, this caused many to believe that Washington leaned politically towards the Federalist Party, although he would never say. Washington would unanimously win re-election, but face some disagreements from the Senate on foreign affairs. So Washington would live a lavish lifestyle as president, and he once turned down an invitation to stay with Governor George Clinton of New York, saying that the president should be no one's guest. He did not shake hands, he would rather give a formal bow instead. You may think that this was a way of acting dignified and a little stuck up, but that was not the case. This was caused by native diffidence, which means that he had a lack of confidence and had some self-doubt. So Washington would voluntarily step aside from the role of president and not run for a 3rd term, as to set a precedent of a maximum of 8 years as president. This was because he did not want to seem like a king or dictator, rather be a federally elected official of the people of the United States of America. He would retire to his home, Mount Vernon, on March 4th, 1797. He would live 2.5 years later until his death on December 14th, 1799. And folks, this is George Washington, the greatest president in the history of the United States of America, because you would have to be to set up a great nation and the most dignified position in the world. He set up how you are supposed to run the executive branch in the United States. And for that, we thank him very much. And folks, this is George Washington.